Good evening, friends, subscribers, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome you again to this platform. And those of you who are yet to subscribe, I encourage you to please subscribe. Okay? Today, I want to cover one aspect of history, one historical event. In 1932, immediately after the length of that year, the length of that year, before the Easter, officials of the colonial government came to Odowa and arrested Joseph Ayo Babalola. He was taken to Benin, where he was tried and where he was convicted in court and put in prison for 6 months. Today, I want to say something about that imprisonment. Was Babalola duly convicted? Was his imprisonment justified? Or was it a conspiracy? I will present the fact before you. In the course of my research for some years, I stumbled across some of the communications, the high-level and high-wire communication between government agents, between colonial officials, and between church dignitaries, certain mission church dignitaries. And Babalola will feature prominently in this communication before his imprisonment. So it is, having studied all these things, it is my conviction that Babalola's imprisonment was more of a conspiracy than of a crime. That is going to prison rather than what he was accused of accusing women of witchcraft and things like that. So I will read some documents to you. You will be a judge. You can judge yourself. It's so clear, I know. No. At the time when these communications were going on and were being documented, they were not aware that one day this document will become public property, that the archive, that those files will become declassified, that Nigerians will have access to. Okay? I have with me there several documents, as you can see. Okay? This is from the National Archive. These are different files. Okay? From the National Archive. Joseph Ayo Babalola, Faith Healer, Aladura Movement, etc., etc. Several of them. Compiled. You can see several papers here. In addition to that, these are official church magazine, official document, church magazine. West Equatorial African Church magazine. This is the official church magazine of the Anglican Church in those days, consisting of several African, okay, and documents. Okay, communications are available, bishop, archbishop, and so on. You will see here, and again, Joseph Babalola feature, and the prophet movement, and the Aladura Movement. Every time you see reference to the original prophet, they were referring to Babalola. If they didn't refer to him by name, they will say the original prophet. He was the one they were referring to. Get it? I have several of that here. See, this is another one. Between 1931 and 1933, all these dogs, I have several of them here. I have several of them running into several pages. Okay, so let us begin. So what I'm telling you, my authority to speak on this subject. I'm not speaking, I'm not telling you anything from hearsay. Or I'm telling you from original document. And I'll be quoting to you, and I'll be reading to you from original document. All right. Now let us begin. First of all, there was a great revival. In 1930, July 10, 1930, July 9 and 10, while the delegates of the Faith Tabernacle gathered at Okeoye in Ilesha, for their meeting, a revival broke out. Babalola too came as a delegate from Iloba for that meeting. Now, it was in the course of that meeting, a child, a 10-year-old child, Obi Ogundipe, 10-year-old child, who had died the night before, and had been taken to several abalis that day by the mother that day in the Ilesha area, and they could not solve the problem. He heard that there is a prayer man in Ilesha at Okoye, and she brought the child there, the 10-year-old. And while he brought on Babalola, he prayed. After several minutes, like more than 1 hour, the child resuscitated. And when God wants to do something, he does it big. When he wants to do a project, when God wants to do a project, he will put his signature there so that you will see that this is not man. The difference between man and God is much. In fact, it's infinity. So God will put infinity. This boy of that day, in 1930, 10-year-old, lived, and he did not die. In 2000, the year 2000, this man was still alive. At the age of 70, he gave a testimony at CAC Okesha in Ilesha that he was the person that Babalola raised from the dead. At the age of 70. At the age of 80, in the year 2000, before he died some years later, so that the whole world can bear witness to it. When God does something, there will be a witness. So it was that mighty revival that broke out in the wake of Mr. Nero Ogundipe, the firstborn of this man, used to be a work with communication, okay, in University of Lagos. I spoke to him. It was his father. All right. So a mighty revival broke out. Now, this is where I'm going. In the course of this revival, terrible things happened. For 50 days, Babalola was in Ilesha. All right? From July 10 to August 30, 50 days. 50 days. By September 1, he left Ilesha to begin a nationwide tour. Now, this revival occasions certain things. First of all, listen, there were stages. Initially, the Faith Tabernacle was just an ordinary, the Aladura Movement, they were individual minority. They were a minor, insignificant religious movement. You will see from some of the colonial documents, the colonial officials, they said that these were insignificant people, men of little power. But that revival led and first turned this movement to become a mass movement of thousands of people. People became aware for the first time of the name of Jesus Christ. They have seen religion, Anglican religion, Methodist religion, mission religion. They have seen religion. But this is on a different note. They never know that by calling the name of Jesus, a dead can come back to life. It was a new thing on the plane of Africa. It was nothing like that had ever happened here. I mean, in the consciousness, on the plane of consciousness of the generality. So, this led to a lot of people turning away from traditional religion to Christianity. At this early time, on Sundays, there were no revival. For those 50 days, there were revival throughout Ilesha. Babalola was holding meeting morning and evening, morning and evening, morning and evening, morning and evening. You will see details of that in this my book, The Great Revival of 1930. Morning and evening, morning and evening. But on Sundays, there were no revivals. Babalola did not pray. He didn't minister to anybody. He will tell the people, go to the different churches. If you don't have church, you are just coming back, go to the nearest church around your house. That was it. So as a result of that, I have documents here which I cannot read, but they are the churches were swept. Even the mission, the records of the churches themselves, it was, I mean, in their own records too. The baptismal service, everything, the churches were Anglican, Methodist, Baptist, all the churches. Don't forget that this time, the Aladura still don't have a church, they just have a faith tabernacle. So the churches were swept. Because Babalola's admonition to the people was go to the church nearest to you. So they were going to any church around. A lot of people surrendered their items. You must have seen the picture they are here. That's not where I'm going now. Surrender, I will talk on this revival on another day. Okay. So surrender a lot of things. So up to this time, no problem. There were cordial relationship between the mission churches and the Aladura movement because they were not yet a threat. In fact, they were a help to the mission church because as a result of their work, many people joined the churches. The African church, the Anglican church, the Baptist church, the Methodist church, people, even the Catholic church. Many people joined the church because people left atheism. People left paganism. They threw away their idols. They brought away their evil child. Okay, for destruction. And then they became Christian for the very first time. So this was one of the very first mass movement. Very first mass movement. Did you see? If you can see this picture, where these are some of the idols. These are some of the veterans that was surrendered. And this is the picture of Obi Ogundipe. You can see him, who at the age of 10 was raised from death by Babalola. This was his testimony in the year 2000 at the age of 80 at the CAC church in Okija to testify that he was the person that was raised from the dead. However, by the time he entered to 1931, when the Aladuras now opened their eyes and said, what are we doing? We also need to start our own movement. That was when trouble started. And I want to say the problem that eventually led to Babalola's imprisonment. Prior to that time, as long as he was conducting revival and his revival was bringing people to the church and to get to the Anglican church, filling the Anglican church, there was no problem. It did not cause any problem. I mean, the churches were happy with him. In fact, they even commended him. Some of Dalimo's paper in this magazine, Dalimo's letter sent to this magazine, he commended, I can't read it here. He commended Babalola. That, you see. But the moment the Aladura themselves decided to now start their own problem began. Now, this is what Professor P. said in summary of the impact of the Aladura movement and the revival, okay, on the churches. This is what he said. Only one important consequence of these years of revival was that the Aladura Christianity, from being the religion of small groups of literate clerks and traders in the town, became also the religion of a broad sweep of the population, including many illiterate farming folk who became Christian for the very first time. That's Professor P. So as a result of that revival, there was a mass movement. Conversion became a one-way exchange. People threw down and surrendered piles of evil mercy for destruction. So, but however, the moment the Aladura decided to become a separate and independent denomination, that was when problems started. So, as the revival entered into 1932, 1931, 1932, by that time, the Aladura Movement had become an apostolic church. In 1931, they had become the apostolic church, a separate denomination. But still, in most of the countryside, there, especially in the Ekiti area, in most of it was still known as African Apostolic Church. So the moment they decided to constitute themselves to a separate church, that was when problems started. Now, from 1930, we have it on the archival documents here that I have with me. From 1930, I interviewed Professor Sun, another researcher, original researcher on these things, both here and the Colonial Archives in London. He said from 1930 to 1945, Babalola was on the watch list. You know, when government is watching you, you will not know. When you are being watched, you won't know that you are being watched. He was going from place to place, but he was being monitored. In all the correspondence that we have, it was being monitored. Everywhere he was going, it was being monitored. So as the revival entered another plane, in 1932, a new trend came into the picture, which was not so discernible at the beginning. The first marked the beginning, or that the hostility, or the policy of intoleration against the Aladura revival by the colonial authority, the mission agents, and the traditional institution. From the beginning, the colonial authority did not hide its hatred for the Aladura movement and wished to stamp it out. Several archival reports and colonial documents are extant supporting this position. However, there was very little they could do because the traditional ruler considered the Aladuras as public benefactors. Now, in those days, the traditional ruler has a lot of power in the town over what goes on in the town. So if the traditional ruler of a town wants a revivalist in his town, then the colonial, the administrator, there is little, as long as he has not broken any law, there's nothing the colonial government can do. So a lot of time they were pushing this traditional ruler to stop them because they have the authority. Don't forget, the kings of those days were not like the kings of today. So the hour of relation, for instance, Oba Adekunle Aromolaru of the first, not the one who passed away, the father of this one who passed away. He was in support of, he was a lover of Baba and an admirer of Babalola himself. There were 3 kings in those days who actually supported the revivals, who went out to really support them. Owa of Ilesha, Oba Adekunle Aromolaru, Alaye of Efon, Alaye Oba Solomon Agunsoyi Aladejare, Olowo Fowo Oba Olateru Olagbeke, and then Alake of Egbaland Oba Ladapo Ademola. These were the 4 kings. When we talk about real support, they came out, they supported, they refused to stamp them out from their domain. They opened their door for them. Despite all the pressure, we have the document here of colonial government. One was written to the Oni, said, tell the Oni, a district officer was writing to another. He said, tell the Oni that he should not allow those people in his domain. Tell the Owa of Ilesha he should not allow the Aladura. Now, why were these colonial officials, why were they against the Aladura? The reason is because the Aladura was not under their control. The Anglican church was their own church, more or less. They brought from their own country. All the mission church, Baptist and whatever, they are not against all that. But the Aladura movement, they knew that if the Aladura movement should succeed, and Nigerians know independence on the religious field, then it will snowball. They will also ask for independence on the political field. So from the very beginning, they regarded the entire Aladura movement as religio illicita, that is, unrecognized religions. In a circular to all district officers, the senior district of Oyo province ordered the officials to take a hard stand against the Aladura movement. I've shown you in the document here. Title, The Faith Healer and the Kerubu and Seraphim Society, one of them. This is what he said. Please watch most carefully the activities of the Aladura and the Kerubu and Seraphim. You see, he separated them. The Aladura, those were the Babalola and the Kerubu and Seraphim. In some other place, he said the Faith Healer. They were divided to the same group of people. And warned the chiefs that there is great danger to the peace of the country and to their authority in allowing these small people to get established and get power. I'm reading the colonial government, the senior district, as he said to all this agent, warning against this Aladura, that is the Babalola group and co. They should forbid them to work in any of their towns, and they should deal with them very severely as people likely to disturb the peace and to impair parental control and spread profligacy in all the homes. They are not recognized Christian mission. It was divided to the Aladura. So you can see they were regarded as religio illicita, as unrecognized. They were not. They were illegal. Why should it be illegal for somebody to serve God in the way of, in his own way, that following his own culture? Babalola did not wear suit. You get it? He wore plain like I'm wearing. He spoke the native tongue, which the people understood in their own language. They sang the native song, which people could identify with. There was revival, there was beating of drums, there was rejoicing. The power of God was present. They didn't want that. In another circular to the district officer by that same senior president, he wrote the following. He said, please warn the Oni, that is the Oni of Ife, is divided to the Oni of Ife. Warn the Oni of Ife, the Oba Adesoji Aderemide. Get it? Warn the Oni and the Olowo against allowing the Aladura or the Kerubu and Seraphim people to establish themselves in any part of Ife and Ilesha district, in any house or any building. They are not recognized religions. They are merely small people who wish to get a living and power. This is what the senior resident circulated to all the people and to the kings. Don't forget, these are unknown to the people. I mean, these are high-level communication. It's like the president of Nigeria now. Okay? I mean, or the director general of the DSS, whatever. Like it to another about it. You don't know the person is doing what you are doing. Please follow the trend. First of all, I want to show you the first one is that. Written in black and white. Let's look at another evidence. Again, in his letter of 3rd August 1931, exactly about 1 year after that, to the resident of your province, titled Aladura Movement, the Secretary of Southern Province in Enugu, acting on orders from the acting Lieutenant Governor, instructed the police to place the Aladura Movement under war. This is from the federal government itself. Acting Lieutenant Governor, okay, to the overall guy in Enugu, now to all residents, place this man, his movement under war. By that man, he was not aware. Babalola was aware of all the. Don't forget, these are documents. These are secret documents. Now, here is what he said. Only the Assistant Inspector General of Police has been asked to instruct his officers to watch the movement and to report any information obtained to him and to the resident of the province. His Honor will be glad to have such information as you may obtain and your views on this movement and on any steps which might be taken to curb it. I put that in capital. Did you see that? On any steps which might be taken to curb it. This is from directly from Lieutenant Governor to resident and then to all the residents. So at this level now, 1 year after, by August 1931, by August 13, 1930, the first document I read, they were still observing. By August 1931, they were now prepared to curb the movement. In other words, to stop its spread. Just follow. Don't forget, this is from government agency to each other. And there is a plan from above, from the highest authority, now the Lieutenant Governor. Now, take note of the emphasis. The colonial authority were by this time, that is August 1931, already looking for ways to curb, that is to stop the spread of the Aladura movement. That is Nigeria's own indigenous movement of Christianity. They were planned to stop it. And of course, his most visible leader, Joseph Ayo Babalola. Now, in fairness to the colonial official, there had been some anti-tax agitations in two towns, in Akure, Ondo State, and some other places by some people. But Babalola wasn't involved in all this. He was not directly or indirectly involved. In fact, according to colonial records that we also have, Ekiti division, especially Efalaye area, where Babalola was resident, had the highest tax compliance in all of the Ekiti division, all the times of Babalola. So he was running a law-abiding movement. Let's look at the third evidence. Because of time, I want to rush many things. Now, also in the letter to the divisional officer in Ibadan, the commissioner of police in Calabar province requested for all information available on Babalola. Please take note of that. When the government of Ibadan, this is documented. I will read what they said. I will read this to you now. They were asking for any fact, any information. At that time, a decision had already been taken. Don't forget, the other document I read to you, they say this matter, this movement must be called. They have decided that it has to be stopped. So how are we? And of course, they will have made. How do we stop it? If we are going to stop this thing, one man must be first of all removed. Babalola must be removed. He must be liquidated. I mean, it's just like that. If you are going to stop this thing, there is one man today who is the visible, who is the face of this movement, who is the rallying point. And so if we remove him, it will curb this thing. The agents, see, I want you to understand this thing. Man is interested, Satan is interested in control. The reason why there's so much is because they don't control it. The Queen of England or the King of England is the head of the Anglican Church. Baptist from America is an American organization. Catholic is headed by Rome, by the Pope. The only one they didn't control, that white people don't control, is this Aladura Movement, which is why. So the essence, the real battle is for control. White man does not control this one. White man does not hate it. And this was the mass movement. And this was where, from all evidence and purposes, this was where things were happening. So the Commissioner of Police of Calabar Province now asked, obviously at that time, the government had informed me, this man, Babalola, we want to try him. Can you get anything against him? Can you get anything against him that can? Now, this is what he wrote. I shall be obliged if you will forward all possible information regarding the above person. The title of the document is Joseph Ayo Babalola. If you can talk to me regarding the above person, I understand that for some years, he has been connected with the Aladura and Faith Tabernacle movement in your area, and in 1931 was charged with an offense but discharged. That's not true. Okay? So the Commissioner of Police now obviously has been directed, get whatever you can get about this person. So thus, it is clearly established that Babalola and indeed the Aladura movement were under close surveillance and monitoring by the colonial authority. Also, there was already an attempt to curb the movement. We have seen that. And stop its progressive course. This much has been established from the document of colonial authority itself. This represents the first stage in the conspiracy theory. I will put it as theory for now. Okay, but I will show you some other thing now. I leave it for you to, as people would think, I leave it for you. So that when some months later I was arrested, I mean, you can tell. Behind the series of events which eventually triggered Babalola's imprisonment. Now, let us look at further proofs. There were other proofs that the colonial authority was not favorably disposed to the Aladura movement and was looking for every excuse to clamp down on the movement, spurred by the Mission Church, notably the CMS and the Wesleyan movement. And in some cases, the traditional institution. The colonial officials became poised to arrest the movement, which had depleted the membership base of the other churches. You know, at this time too, they too have started their own churches. They too have started the Apostolic Church. They too have adopted their own denomination. And masses of Yorubas have moved there. Most of these were former members of Anglican Church, former members of Methodist Church. They were not happy about that. In some places, like in Ekitiland, there was a clear allegiance, a change of allegiance. Even some priests left their color and joined the Aladura. It was that bad. At the burial of Reverend Dalimo of Ekiti, he said that the Babalola revival in Ekiti shook the Anglican Church, that he was shaking. A lot of people left to join the. So it was now clear that, see, and don't forget, Anglican Church was, the head of Anglican Church is Britain. Is the Queen or the King of England is the head of the Anglican Church. And he's also the head of the colonial government, you can see. So, firstly, the colonial official nurtured an evil motive against the movement. They expected it to come to an end as suddenly as it had risen. They expected the popularity or fame of the leading figure of the movement to decline. Their own document revealed this. They said that much. In the letter to the district officer, the assistant district officer based in Ilesha expressed his hope that the popularity of Babalola will soon decline. Hear what he said. I think it likely, this is what the ADO, Assistant District Officer of Ilesha, In another letter to district officer, this is what he said. Only I think it likely that is Babalola's popularity will wane as quickly as it had risen when the people came to appreciate the true value of his blessing. I am inclined to think this is happening already among the Elisha themselves. In other words, say, look, this man is popular for now. We can't touch him. But with time, his popularity will wane. Okay? That in fact, the revival has started to decline. That is to wane. After some time to wane. But what happened? Rather than for the fame to wane, it even increased to other places, culminating in powerful revivals in Ephon. When Elisha began to die, Babalola moved away. After 50 days, he moved away to 11 and started another revival there. When that one did, he moved to Offa and started another. When the Offa was going to do, he moved again to Efalaye, where in fact a bigger Okelepa, another bigger revival began. Another bigger revival began. And from Efalaye to Ikare. So it became, meanwhile, Ibadan, Orekoya started, I will tell you about that man too. It's the one I was talking about in the last video on African God's channel. He has sparked his own fire too in Atokebola. Yeah. That is genuine Christianity. Aladura Christianity. They say Christianity is foreign. No, that's not foreign. This began here. This is our own authentic African Christianity. And that is what we need to give back again to. That is what will solve the present problem. All this ritualism, this herbalism. That is the answer, the final answer to the power crisis that is now bedeviling the church and the world. So they expected his popularity to wait, but the popularity did not wait. So next, the colonial official began to think, to look for evidence against the leaders of the Aladura Movement, with which to bring them to trial. They now move now. You expect somebody to fall, it did not fall. You expect him to die, it didn't die. You expect his popularity to wait, it was increasing. So the next stage is, how do we stop this movement? Just like in the case of Christ. This man is performing too many miracles. What are we going to do? If we allow him, the Roman will take over. He will confront everybody. They have to act. They have to strike him. So in another colonial document, a letter from the assistant district officer in Ilesha to the senior resident in Oyo, we see again evidence that the mission churches were already moving the colonial government to act against the movement to save them from total extinction. Now, another dimension is coming now. Now, either to have been reading what the colonial themselves, among themselves, what they have been saying. But now we see another thing now. The mission church themselves, the Wesleyan Church, Methodist Church, the Anglican Church, the mission church themselves now entitled to the church. Okay? You have to do something about this, but else people will leave. Our churches will be empty. Yeah. You have to do something. The manipulation of power, the corruption of power, and the power of corruption. Okay? This is what the ADO said. Only the Wesleyan mission feels its continuing existence here to be seriously threatened. This is the man in Ilesha. The assistant district officer is in Ilesha. The penny told him, and he said it here. He wrote it in record to his senator. The Anglican, the mission, the Wesleyan mission, they are feeling threatened here. The Wesleyan mission feels its continuing existence here to be seriously threatened. And there is no doubt that considerable defections have already taken place, both from them and from the CMA. Did you see? No, this is documented. This is documented. This is from the archive. Documented.
So by now, the Wesleyan ministry have spoken to the ADO, complain, and the CMS to fed the same thing, that we are being depleted. A lot of defections. People have left. People are leaving to go and join the Aladura. You have to do something. Now, the question to ask is this. This man is supposed to be a government official. What is his business? In Britain, there is supposed to be separation between church and state. What is his reason about the feeling of the Wesleyan movement? About the Methodist church? What is his business about the feeling of the Anglican church? Simply they are all together. Simply Anglican too can preach to people and let people decide where they want to join, where they want to be. Why do they feel they are ready to protect the CMS, to protect the Methodist church against the Aladura? So these questions are important because they show that both the colonial government officials and the mission agent were in collusion to curb the Aladura movement and jail their leaders. As the next paragraph of that same letter now shows. Again, I want to read the next paragraph. Look at what he said. As regards the attitude of the missionary, you say that if evidence was forthcoming, you might be prepared to sanction a prosecution under Section 204 of the Criminal Code. I am confident that the Wesleyan Mission will try to find such evidence against Mr. J. Babatope. Now, who is Babatope? Babatope was the, okay, let me finish with this. Against J. Babatope, who is the leader of this movement against them? Incidentally, is a man who was expelled from CMS. Let me clarify that. This is what the Oga now wrote back. But okay, if the Wesleyan Mission will, we can find evidence to try them. If they don't want them. Did you see that? This is documented. It's in your archive. In Ibadan, in terms of Ibadan, National Archive. Then we can find evidence against them. Now, the Babatope they are referring to is the leader of the Faith Tabernacle in Ilesha. That is the leader of that section in Ilesha. It was him, the other delegates who was hosting there when the revival started. It's not really true that he was dismissed from the CMA. No, he resigned. He actually left. He was persecuted and he left. Whether he was dismissed or whatever, he was a catechist with the Anglican Church when he left to join the Faith Tabernacle. So they say, well, if it is that, we can get evidence to nail him. So you can see now, this is communication between now colonial official and church agent. So if the Wesleyan and Anglican can find, they can get the evidence, we can try them. Did you see that? Collusion, conspiracy. If you see a man of God, a true man of God going to jail, know that there is a conspiracy between a government and a section of the church. It doesn't happen anyhow. Even Gary Bray that died in prison, we now know from the world that James Johnson, Bishop James Johnson, gave his word to the authority to sanction. They cannot do that. If you see government take somebody who is innocent, a Christian, a child of a minister, and clamp him and deal with him anyhow, like a common criminal, know that some element in the church have sold him. Just like Judas sold things like that don't happen. You can see the conspiracy. Meanwhile, except by the revelation of God, Babalola was saying aware that things were being cooked around him, that he was somebody being watched. That plans were being concluded at the highest level. But he himself, being a man of prayer, he knew, because the Lord had told him when he called him in 2023 that there are 4 kinds of punishment you will suffer. And one of it is that you, for my name's sake, you will put on a prison garment. It's a honor to suffer for his name, to go to prison for doing nothing, for the sake of Christ, to be crucified for Christ. It's a honor. It's a great honor. And God said you will suffer for cancer. So he was already aware. Only for these things were written. And they have done this thing to him without realizing. So they were planning. But the man of God was prayer and continuing with his work. So it was clear that the missions too wanted the Aladura persecuted in order to curtail the spread of the Aladura movement. Not only that, they were in collusion with the colonial officials against the government. These letters, marked confidential, were exchanged between March and August 1931, where the colonial officials and the mission agent, both white, already agreed prominent and visible prophet of the movement. Thus, the existence of a conspiracy is established. In other words, this was August 1931. This was October 1931 that they have concluded this among themselves. See,